Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.
Yes, people, welcome back to the Highbury Squad. And it's for Get Off The Pottsy, episode 3. And I thought, who best to bring on than Super Kevin Campbell. How are you, sir?
Dan, I'm absolutely fantastic. Squaddies at ease. No, I'm great, thanks, Dan. Good to be on. Finally, I get off the potsy. Brilliant.
Yeah, man, love it. I thought, who better to bring on than yourself? And I'll absolutely love doing this. And I want to say a huge thank you to yourself and Sophie for allowing me your channel and this platform, because I absolutely love the Highbury Squad as a podcast. But this is just a bit of fun, and it allows us to take away some of the emotion of everyday life at Arsenal at the moment. So it's time to reminisce. I thought what we do for this episode is pick our top 5 Arsenal transfers. And funny enough, Casey, because we both had a discussion about it, we're very similar with our 5, but they're in a different order. So what I thought we'd do is have a little bit of a discussion about why we put them in that order and why we think they're more important than the other. And then, of course, we're going to do our statement, Get Off The Pottsy, which we'll do a little bit after our top 5. So I want to get straight into it because we haven't got too much time. But what was interesting with this one for me was I found it easy, but for a moment, it was hard in terms of the order. Now, for me, I was thinking, because there's some loads that I've missed out, Casey, I ain't going to lie. But
that's
pick 5.
Another show.
To pick 5, no, we could have picked 10 and it still would have been difficult. Do you know what I mean? So how difficult was this for you, man?
Do you know what, Dan? When you sent it across to me, I thought, oh, that's easy. And then you start writing names down and you think, hold on a minute. I've been in the club. There's players who I'm looking at and I'm thinking, wow, would he get into a top 5? But he's been so influential in the club. It's really tough one. It is a real tough one, and I'm sure there's going to be people who disagree with us, Dan, on some of them. Some might agree, some might disagree. But you know what? It's a game of opinions, and that's why it's so brilliant.
And I think sometimes I have to take the emotion out of these choices, and because if this was my 5 favorite transfers, it would be
I know who
order.
would be number 1.
You know who'd be number 1, right? So I'm looking at this thinking I've got to take that. I can't be biased all the time, otherwise he's going to be number 1 for everything. Do you know what I mean? So I need to be honest with myself about the importance. And I went for importance, how they changed our style of play, how they changed us as a club, and that was where I went for you. And it seems to me like you've done similar. So let's get into it, man, because at number 5 we both picked the same person. So. Normally, we'd go one at a time, and we will do that when our order starts to change. But we have both chosen the same for number 5 and number 4. So I look at this now and think, this for me is my favourite player, right, ever at Arsenal. And I had to get him in the top 5. It was difficult. I left out a few players. I thought Fabregas did cross my mind because of the amount that we got him for, which was pennies. And of course, he was so influential to our new style of play moving into the Emirates era. But I went for Ian Wright on number 5, and so did you. And listen, you had the absolute pleasure of playing alongside him and meeting the guy, and the guy just seems an absolute. I just love everything about this guy. But in terms of the signing, let's not talk too much about Wrighty because we all love him and we all know why we love him. But in terms of him coming to the Arsenal, Kev, that just lifted everybody because of how good he was, but also how reliable he was in terms of his goal scoring, mate.
Yeah, I think that was really the final jigsaw of South London, to be honest. We had quite a few South London boys at the club. We know his relationship with Rocky as well. And, we were champions at the time, but we needed a bit more. When I got injured, I think it was that pre-season, and the club went for Wrighty. We were all buzzing because we know what Wrighty could bring to the Arsenal Football Club. And, him coming through the door meant we were serious. We were a serious football club. You don't just go out and sign Ian Wright. Ian Wright comes with everything connected. He's hungry. He's infectious. He's a great lad. And I think the fans took to him straight away. I mean, look at that game at Southampton where he's absolutely tore them to pieces. He weren't sure how he was going to get his chances. And then he said when he was in training, he's looking at the boys in training. He's just like, how am I not going to get chances at this club? And the chances just kept coming. And you give him chances and he'll just keep finishing. Very rarely he misses. And that's why I had him. Look, I kind of weighed it up with errors. I kind of weighed it up with you have to look at that invincible side as well. That's what I had to look at. And I thought, I looked at Kevin Richardson in the 80s as well. And I thought, wow, do you know what? Kevin Richardson was so important. He's such an unsung hero. He could have got into my 5, but he just, because of Wrighty and who Wrighty is and what he stands for, that's why I had to leave Kevin Richardson out. What an absolute fantastic player, ambassador, and guy. He was and a great roommate as well. He constantly making me laugh as well. He was so funny.
Joker, mate. Absolute joker. And
absolute
do you think,
guy.
before we move on to our number 4, Kev, do you think sometimes Ian Wright gets, when people do like combined 1 to 11s and they look at Arsenal's all-time great players, I think probably the harshest kind of thing for Ian Wright is everybody thinks of Bergkamp and Henry straight away. And sometimes Ian Wright gets forgotten about. And I always hate that because people always say to me, oh, Dan, who's your 1 to 11? I have to play 3 of them up front because I can't leave Wrighty out. I can't. Yeah. There's no way, no chance.
2 up top with Bergkamp sitting just behind.
100%, mate.
You have to. Look, the problem is, Dan, we've got so much quality players to choose from. And this is the difficulty, that we have to choose. But Wrighty has to be in my top 5, and I know he's got to be in your top 5. So, without a shadow of a doubt, for me, Ian Wright, number 5.
There we go. That is a great start because we're both agreeing. We will start to disagree in a minute, but we're not disagreeing on this one. We have both gone at number 4 with one of the greatest players I've seen at the club. Patrick Vieira. Now, with Patrick Vieira, what I love about him is not just the fact that he was a leader, but this guy could do everything on the ball, Kev. And when he came into the Arsenal as a transfer, we all thought, what's he going to be like? I remember looking at him thinking, Christ, he's a bit gangly. What's happening here?
Lad,
yeah. Not used to that, were we? And I thought this could be a stroke of genius or it could go wrong for him. But Arsene Wenger knew a little bit about him, brought him in, and really he was the biggest kind of influence over that Arsene Wenger era, really, for me, mate. I absolutely love
What a great photo. What a great photo. Yeah. What a great photo. Look. Silverware, Dan.
Remember that?
This isn't that what it's all about? Look, and the reason why we look at the Vieiras of this world, and obviously Arsene Wenger was a fantastic manager to be able to spot the talent and bring them in. Obviously, Vieira was in Italy, and he wasn't getting a fair crack. And we brought him in, and we were wondering, as you rightly said, what type of guy, what type of player is he? But he soon established himself, Dan. And over the years, you saw him get better and better and better until he was the standard bearer. You hear your Scholeses and your Gerrards and your Lampards and your Keanes. You hear them talking about having to take on Arsenal because why? Because that number 4 is sitting in the middle of the pitch. Vieira's there. He could do it all. He could break things up. He could dribble. He could shoot. He could tackle. And if you wanted to get rough, he could get rough with the best of them. So I just think someone to take over from Tony as well. Captain fantastic, middle of the pitch, someone who, was fearless. I could not leave this guy out. Had to find a spot for him. Maybe could have even pushed him a little further forward or closer to the number 1 spot. But I had to get Vieira in. And, having met him a few times, played against him a few times, trust me, he was fantastic. He really was a fantastic player. Do you know what, Dan? I haven't told anyone this. We played. I was at West Brom, and we played Arsenal at home at the Hawthorns, and The ball broke in between me and Vieira in midfield. And I slid in and I hit the ball and I hit Vieira. And I've got the ball and I've hit Vieira. And normally, if I hit someone, they're flipping over. But I hit Vieira, I hit him right on the ankle as well. Got the ball on the ankle. And he just ran off.
No way.
And I said to myself, wow, here we go. Here we go. I've got to hit him somewhere else. I can't hit him low because he's that strong. Like, you know what I mean? I've got to try and hit him high. But trying to get near to these guys at the time was so difficult, Dan.
Yeah, man. And I remember
on the floor.
I remember when he came in and at such a young age and he was doing that to people. And he was the only one, really, when Roy Keane stood up, you thought, I tell you what, I fancy our chances here because we got Vieira. Without Vieira playing, you thought, yeah, you know what? I love Edu, I love Parla, I love Gilberto. But actually, we're going to miss Vieira now. We've got Keane and Scholes in that middle. And I think one of the biggest compliments I can give Vieira in terms of his off-the-pitch stuff is that guy right next to him there was one of the best captains anyone's ever seen, not just at Arsenal, one of the best captains you've ever seen. Exactly, right. So when Vieira took that, what hard shoes to fill. And my God, did he fill them? I mean, for a few seasons, I thought he was one of our most important players, Patrick Vieira. He could do everything. And I do think, Kev, there's not really been anyone to replace him in world football. Like, they can do everything. You get your Kantés who are good at certain attributes. You get your, the De Bruynes that are good at going forward. This guy could just do everything. He had all the physical attributes to be an absolute mountain of a centre midfielder. But he could play. He could play on the ball.
Oh, he was unbelievable on the ball as well. And what that switch where we get the ball in midfield and he'll switch the ball to the side and he'll get it and he'll switch it. He doesn't really get a lot of credit for that, but that's what he was really good at. Getting midfielders in, beating them with quick feet, and then getting the ball out so the fullbacks could really push on and join in. I thought he was excellent. And Dan, what a player. What an absolute player. Someone who could take the armband. You're right. Not been replaced. We've struggled. Fabregas done okay, but he's not a Vieira. Vieira is one of those all-round players who every team needs. Every team.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And do you know what? Somebody, just finishing on this, somebody asked me a question that I found quite easy to answer. And everybody said, I think the decline of Arsenal in terms of title to where we are now was when we got rid of David Dean. I said, yeah, I'll go along with that. I think that was part of it. And he said, what do you think was Arsenal's decline? And I said, when we got rid of this guy. Because when we sold Patrick Vieira, I thought the heart of that midfield went. And then we see Ashley Cole go afterwards. David Dean moved to the Emirates. It started to go downhill a little bit after that. But when you look how important Patrick Vieira is, if you need to know, go and look at when we won the league at Old Trafford, at how great he was. Go and look at when we gone to Tottenham or White Hart Lane, how instrumental he was. These are massive, massive, important games that he was a massive part of and key. So it's quite easy for me to look at and say 2005, last kick of a ball was a penalty win for the FA Cup. And unfortunately, he didn't stay longer. And I would have loved to have seen him stay to the day he retired. I think Arsenal's decline started when Patrick Vieira left Arsenal, Kev. I really do.
You think about it. He was the heartbeat. He was the main man in that midfield. And when you take the heart out, there ain't much life, is there, really? Although we had half-decent teams and some good players playing. I mean, Gilberto done okay. I thought Gilberto was cool. But it's never going to be the same when you lose a rock in the centre of the midfield like him. And this is the level that we're looking at with maybe a new one, a current player, Thomas Partey. This is the levels we want Partey to get to. We know he's not there yet. We know he can get to good levels, but that's the yardstick. Patrick Vieira.
You're 100%, mate. Listen, if Thomas Partey's even after player Vieira will be, we've got ourselves an absolute monster, because I don't think this guy can be replaced. I honestly believe he's one of the best midfielders I've ever seen, not just at Arsenal. So he had to get in there. Now it gets interesting, Casey, because we've got the same three players here in a completely different order. So I'm going to ask you who you've gone for next and why.
I've gone for Dennis Bergkamp. And the reason why I've gone for Dennis Bergkamp is because he was the first of the new regime. And this was a David Dean signing. Obviously, it was when Bruce Wright was manager. but he was the first of the Invincibles signings to come to Arsenal. And he went through, a little bit of growing pains at the club, and where the team weren't as dominant as they got to be when you add the certain players that are going to come up, Dan. But what an absolute incredible talent, goal scorer, person, and he's got a mental toughness. And I mean, that goal, the Bezos, I mean, what he done to the Bezos that day, I mean.
It's just scary, isn't it? That shouldn't be
Yeah, I
happening.
mean, when I saw it, I went, oh no, you did not do that. You know what I mean? And the finish, to get his body right across the Bezos and just slot it. Look, we've seen him do some incredible stuff, and some of the goals he scored, but his all-round play, his all-round awareness, and apparently the same way he played, he trained exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Brought the level of training up, and he was a class guy. Look, you could go for Bergkamp anywhere from 1 to 3. You really can. But who I've got in number 2 and number 1, I've got a story behind why they are going to be there. But don't get me wrong, Dennis Bergkamp could easily be 2 or number 1. But for me, he's going to be number 3 solely because he was the first. He's an incredible player, and he's the one who kind of made the team tick. So he's number 3.
I love that. And for me, he's the best player to wear the shirt. A lot of people would say other people, Lee Judges thinks Patrick Vieira. Lots of my friends think Thierry Henry. I just loved everything about this guy. And what I think is so hilarious is that I grew up I grew up with more than one, but I grew up with one Spurs fan in particular through school absolutely hated me because we were winning everything. I had a very nice few school years, KC. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where I could just boast and be, with Man United and with Tottenham fans just didn't even bother, to banter. It was just embarrassing. But I remember watching that goal, and I remember coming into school beaming the Newcastle goal, and I remember coming in, everyone was. Don't talk to Potsy because Arsenal have won and Bergkamp scored one of the best goals ever. And the Tottenham fan, being the Tottenham fan that he is and still is now, I didn't even mean it. Don't understand what the hype is. Didn't even mean that goal. I can't have it, KC. I still get it now. He didn't mean that. I can't have it. Can't have it.
You know how to tell he meant it? Do you want to know how to tell?
Go on.
After he takes the first touch, and he's already on the move to try and get round the Bezos. If you watch it, as he takes the touch, as soon as he gets the touch, he's on his way around.
Yep.
Because he knows where the ball's going. The Bezos doesn't. It was an incredible goal. I think Sophie mentioned that he doesn't even think it's his favorite goal. He apparently said that.
Yeah.
And his favorite goal was the Argentina World Cup goal, which, I mean, if you remember that goal, that was absolutely ridiculous.
And the Leicester one as well. That was class as well.
That was ridiculous. But for Arsenal, obviously, for me, that one was just, that summed Bergkamp up. He's the only player who could do that.
Yeah.
The only player
you're right.
who could do that.
You are right, mate. So let's go to who I've gone for, right?
Yeah.
So when I sent you that, you're not going to believe this when I say this, and neither will the people in the chat, but it's true. I put this guy down as number 1 to start with, right? But it was my head talking, and I thought, actually, I don't know if I can put him as number 1. So I put at number 3 Sol Campbell, right? You know why I put him at number 1? Because of how we got him,
Yes.
That's why I put him as number 1. Because that for me was just one of the stories of the history of football. It was certainly the history of the Premier League. Yeah. For us to nab him from that lot up the road was just beautiful, KC. It was beautiful. And for him to come in and be so sensational and be the rock that he was for us, he deserves a mention high up. And I couldn't put him 5 or 4. My head said, do you know what? And my heart said, could go number 1. But then actually my head and heart started to level out and I thought, I need to be serious about this. Yeah. Actually, he probably wasn't the best transfer ever, but certainly should be in the talking for it. And that's why I put him at number 3. But I will say this, the biggest compliment I can give to Sol Campbell is when Tony Adams left, we didn't miss Tony Adams because of that guy. Yeah. So when Tony Adams was going, I was gutted. I was like, how can I not see a back line without Tony Adams in it? You know, where I've grown up for, the best part of 10 years with Tony Adams, or longer than that, with Tony Adams at the back. But he just kind of went, and it was like, goodbye, Tony. You've been a legend for us. Sol Campbell's here, and we are more than happy. And I never thought that was mentioned as much with Sol Campbell, because for me, I think, I know you've put him up higher, but I personally thought the guy was an absolute rock. And you could play him next to, he had a year next to Tony, he had a year next to Martin Keown, he played quite a lot next to Kolo Toure, and he was an absolute rock. And, I think we were blessed at the time, Casey, as an England internationals, with him, Terry, Ferdinand, Carragher, obviously Keown, who was still getting in the mix at the time at a low age. And I'm thinking, we have got so many centre-halves here. Sol Campbell doesn't get a mention in the same bracket as Rio and Terry, but I don't quite understand why, because I think personally there ain't that much between Sol Campbell and John Terry. I mean, that's how good that's how highly I rated Sol Campbell, mate.
Yeah, look, for me, obviously I've got Sol Campbell a bit closer to the top, just by one spot. I've got him next. The fact of the matter is, him making that decision to come to Arsenal, I totally get what you're saying, Dan. It's such a big deal. It is such a big deal. And he's still hated for it now, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
He's still hated for that move now. Thing is, he was a young man. He saw what was happening at Arsenal. And he made a decision that that's where I want to be. I want to win. That's what was in his head, Dan.
Yep.
I'm a winner, and I want to win. And I'm looking at Arsenal, and really, maybe I'm covering a bit of what I'm going to talk about as well. But to get him on a free transfer, to go there and to play with Tony Adams and Keown, Kolo Toure, and these guys, Bergkamp, Vieira, I mean, come on, man. I mean, no disrespect to Spurs, no disrespect, but it's not even a question of if,
Agreed.
It's when you're coming. It's when you're going to sign. So obviously it had to be kept nice and under wraps until the story broke. And then I thought to myself, Arsenal have got now the legacy going, because Tony Adams, his legs were going, and it was time to transition. And what happened? Sol Campbell could step in. He's got Martin Keown there, which was great. And then he's got Kolo Toure to keep the legacy going of that defense, that mentality. And Sol Campbell had it. He became a gooner, and with that mentality really quickly. And for me, I just think another British centre-half makes a huge difference. Made a huge difference to us with that mentality, with that toughness, with that never say die attitude, and someone who trained really well and wanted to be the best. That's the other thing, Dan. Sol Campbell wanted to be the best. That's why he came to Arsenal. He had offers from so many great clubs.
Yeah, Juventus, etc., weren't it?
AC Milan, all that. Back then, AC Milan were top class. Bayern Munich. But he came and joined Arsenal because he wanted to be the best. He wanted to play with the best players. Didn't want to go abroad. Wanted to play in England, and he wanted to win. And what a signing he was. That's why, for me, you've got him at 3. That's why I'm kind of moving it forward.
You put him at 2, yeah.
To number 2, I put him there because I think that was potentially a banana skin for Arsenal. I mean, look at that smile, Dan.
Yeah, well, mate, if I had him in my hand, I'd be smiling as well.
Listen, that is a smile of success. That is a smile of success. That just shows you that's a decision I made that paid off. Look at that.
That is so true, man. So true. And you know what we I think sometimes fail to give him credit for, because we get so hyped up in the fact he come to Arsenal. That shows his mentality by having the balls to do it, KC, because that could have been a massive no for him. Do you know what I mean? And the
course.
amount of abuse he received from the Spurs fans. And to be fair, some football fans couldn't believe it either. The neutrals were giving him some stick. Oh, can you believe Sol Campbell's done that? And he's done the dirty business on Spurs. It works out for him, and he's sitting there smiling, like you say, because he realizes the relief of, wow, I have won these 2 trophies and more that he went on to win. But at the time of that photo, he knows it's the right thing. So that's why he walks into, for me as well, 100%.
Also, Dan, he's an invincible.
Yeah, exactly.
He's an and you go along the list and you look at invincibles. These guys should be held in such high esteem in the Premier League, going unbeaten in a season. I mean, we've seen teams go close, but to actually do it, these guys should be lauded. And Sol Campbell was vital to us being invincible. So, hey, listen. Big respect to all. Listen, you could mix and match these guys in any position.
And we did. Both of us did.
And we did. We mixed and matched them. But I think just because of the Tony Adams situation and Sol Campbell's situation, leaving Spurs and coming to Arsenal and then being that guy at the back, that's why he gets number 2 for me. Damn.
Yeah, and you know what? It's hard for me to try and even debate that with you because, as I said to you, I've stuck him at number 1. Just because my heart was saying, yeah, go on, we'll have him at number 1. But again, chopping and changing, and I totally get why he's there. So you've got him at number 2. Let me tell you who I've gone for at number 2. I've gone for who you've put at number 1. And this is where we can get a debate now.
Yeah.
Because I've gone number 2, Thierry Henry, which means my number 1 is Dennis Bergkamp. You've gone with, obviously, Sol Campbell at number 2, and number 1, you've gone with Thierry Henry. Yeah. Now, let's talk about Thierry Henry then and why you've put him at number 1, why I've put him at number 2. This guy was probably Arsene Wenger's best transfer, in my opinion. Because when you take someone who has low confidence like he had at Juventus, but he knew what he could do at Monaco, it's still a risk, Casey, because he thinks, am I going to get the player that's at Monaco or the player that's low of confidence at Juventus? And you know the funny thing? He actually got the player that was at Juventus to start with. He had to find the player that was at Monaco again.
Develop him.
But once exactly. And once he found it, this guy, there was no stopping him, man. I mean, he's got to be one of the best players you've ever come up against. I must say it. Unbelievable talent, just ridiculously good.
Dan, let me tell you something. That invincible team, mate. I mean, we could look at Freddie and Perez, and you could look at Overmars, who was devastating. You could even look at Edu. Edu was another good signing.
Yep.
But this guy here, he was a killer. He was a monster. And he's not your typical striker. He's a forward. That's what he was. He's a forward. He's used to playing wide. So, he used to drift, didn't he? You see, he used to drift out wide. Once he used to change gear, defense is finished. We've seen him score some of the best goals in Premier League history. I mean, the one what he got against Spurs where he's ran the length of the pit. I mean, come on. He done the same against Liverpool.
Love that picture, man. Love that picture.
I think maybe it's to the day where he scored that goal against Real Madrid.
Oh.
But that performance against Real Madrid, oh my goodness. I mean, they had everybody playing for them, but he was just outstanding. There's so many moments this guy has done. That goal against United where his ball's come into him, he's held the defender off, he's flicked it up and he's caught the volley.
Ahead of Bartes, yeah.
Listen, again, he dovetails so well with Bergkamp. Why? Because a lot of the time, Henry had to be accounted for. Henry would move wide, and then Bergkamp has got room to maneuver, to play, which was a fantastic way how it all worked out. Dennis Bergkamp, the football brain that he's got, probably made a lot of goals for Henry as well. I ain't taking that away. And like I said, Bergkamp could have been number 1 easily. I just think the hardest thing is putting that ball away, Dan. And the way Henry done it, the way the class that he showed, some of his finishes, headers, his finishes, slots into the corner, power shots. he scored a whole plethora of goals, even one where he had somebody piggybacked on him and he backheeled it in front of the North Bank. Could you remember that one? Where the ball's come into him, he's got someone on his back, he's backheeled it into the net.
Charlton, it was. I was at that game. Class.
I mean, look, these guys, you've got number 4, you've got number 3, and you've got number 1. For me, look, Thierry Henry was just the ultimate forward. The ultimate forward in a sense that not only could he score goals, he had an unselfish streak where he will set people up.
Yeah.
They went for a phase
assists
where
are unreal. Unbelievable.
Where he's just setting people up. So again, having played against him and seen him and stuff like that, I know defenders only wanted to see him twice a year.
Oh,
I'm telling you.
Imagine coming up against
they
him.
only wanted to see him twice a year. If that.
Yeah.
If that.
Mate,
trust me.
The guy is an absolute machine. Probably one of the best strikers ever. Like some people say the best striker ever. Certainly for me, he's the best Premier League player there's ever been. I don't really think there's somebody that can take that off of him. I just loved watching him, Kev, as well. When I used to go to Highbury, and the Emirates for a couple of seasons, and of course I was there with my dad when he came back and scored against Leeds, which was just outstanding, written in the stars. Yeah. That for me, that's I am
that
literally
still brings a smile to my face, Dad.
Mate, where he is there, where he's looking in that picture, he's basically looking at where I'm sitting, and that was the best part about it. I was like, "Wow, I'm here." He's looking over us. And
he's looking at you, Dad. He's looking at you.
You know what? I'd like to think he was, man. But listen, this guy was just exceptional, and it was really a flip between who I put out of him and Bergkamp. I went for Bergkamp as the best signing ever. I'll explain why in a minute. But for me, Thierry Henry, I'm totally with it. It's like when people say, who's the best player? They say Thierry Henry. I'm like, look, I don't agree, but I can't sit there and say you're wrong because he's so good. It's a little bit like that with yourself. He is the best. You're saying he's the best Arsenal signing ever. And I can't sit there and say you're wrong because the guy the numbers don't lie, the stats don't lie. And although I think Bergkamp's the best player to wear the shirt, I would say Thierry Henry's a better striker. People think that's mad when I say that. But Dennis Bergkamp, although he used to play forward, he wasn't an out-and-out goal-scoring striker like Thierry Henry. He was more of a number 10. And I thought he was a better footballer. But Thierry Henry was the better striker. But for me, I can't really disagree with what you're saying. It was a flip of a coin for me between these two. And I went for importance and how they took us forward. And I think Thierry Henry was massive between the years of 2000 to 2006. Massive. He's one of the biggest reasons we got the Invincibles trophies, the FA Cups, to the Champions League final. You brought up that Real Madrid goal in the Champions League. The guy was an absolute machine. And again, I've seen players leave Arsenal. I've got upset. He was one that I really did shed a tear when he left because it just didn't feel right for me. But these things happen, mate. Absolute monster of a player.
And Dan, I want to say this about these guys. You've gone for Bergkamp, I've gone for Henry.
Flip of a coin.
It's there, isn't it? It's just a par, whatever. But that Arsenal side deserved another go at that Champions League.
Didn't we?
Got done by that. We got done by that decision. And Henry didn't have his best game. He had a couple of chances, didn't he? And
he missed that chance.
One-on-one, and he missed it, which ain't Henry. It wasn't Henry. And I just thought, go one more season. We could do with adding a little spice to that team and going again because they were good enough. But then it got broken up, Dan. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was a shame. And do you know what? You mentioned Champions League. That year, I really had a feeling we were going to win it, 2006. But the year I thought we were definitely going to win it was 2004 when bloody Wayne Bridge at Chelsea. That was the year for me, the one that Porto won under Jose.
Yeah.
And then Chelsea got past us and then bloody couldn't even beat Monaco to get it. Do you know what I mean? I thought, do you know what? That needed it needed an Arsenal Porto final, that one for me. And it's such a shame that we didn't get there because to only win the league that season, that could have won the quadruple that season. That's how good this team was. It was mental how good it was. So listen, the reason I've gone for Dennis Bergkamp, let me just get this before we wrap up, right? The reason I went for Dennis Bergkamp as the greatest transfer ever is because of two things. We were going nowhere at the time. Right, in my opinion, we were going nowhere. We'd had Bruce Rioch, George Graham had left, the fans were in uproar. Everybody, I don't care what anyone says, didn't want to see George Graham go. When he went, Bruce Rioch come in, nobody really had the faith that it was going to work. And when he did bring Dennis Bergkamp, I'm not going to sit there and big up Bruce Rioch for too much because we know it was David Dean, right? But let's just say for his sake, for argument's sake, that he's coming under Bruce Rioch. everybody started looking at us, KC. It's like, hang on a minute, Arsenal just signed Dennis Bergkamp. And that for me, listen, how old was I? 7 or 8 years old. And I remember saying, like, Dad, we've just signed Dennis Bergkamp. And he's like, no. I was like, yeah, like we've just signed Dennis Bergkamp. And I remember the best story I heard from Paul Merson. I went into an audience with him. He said to me and Wright walked in training one day. Bergkamp walked in. And he said, Wrighty, they must be brilliant in Milan. Because if they're letting him go,
Yeah,
then I don't want to play in Milan.
Said that, yeah,
you know what I mean?
Said that. How good must Inter Milan be? Yeah, that's right. That's
Do you know what I mean? And I wanted to ask you, because obviously he's my number one and I think he's the best player that's ever wore the shirt, right? Do you kind of wish you had a few seasons playing with him? Because as a striker's dream, surely.
Well, here's the thing, you see, Dan. When football is about timing sometimes, right? So just imagine 10 months. I am probably 10 months between, probably 10, 11 months between me leaving the club and Arsene Wenger coming.
There you go.
Right? Obviously, it didn't work out because of Bruce Wright was the manager.
Yep.
But I'm sure if Arsene Wenger was the manager, I wouldn't have gone anywhere.
You would have stayed. Yeah.
Yeah, I would have stayed because a new regime, a new way of thinking. You know, I think at the time, the squad was really open to that. And as you saw, Arsene Wenger really, that back four got rejuvenated pretty quick. Goalkeeper got rejuvenated pretty quick. The players that were there got rejuvenated pretty quick. Why? Because it was a new way. They were learning new things, Dan. I think that would have been really important. So, unfortunately, it's just a matter of time. And the timing was against me. I don't regret it, but I just know.
Of course not.
I don't regret it, but I just know this is about football. And the timing just was off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just off.
And it is a shame, but I look at Dennis Bergkamp. I think first touch I've ever seen, like by far. No one comes close, in my opinion. The assist king as well. You know, people talk about Mesut Ozil and what Thierry Henry had done with his assists. Bergkamp is a dream. You ask Thierry Henry, Ian Wright, Nicolas Anelka, Robin van Persie, who they love the most, it's Dennis Bergkamp, because playing next to this guy must just make things so easy. And the biggest compliment people give Dennis Bergkamp, like you said earlier, Kev, he was focused 100% of the time, whether it be in training, he wanted to win. He had that ambition and it grew on people. People wanted to be him. He was a role model. You know, we say it sometimes at the Arsenal at the moment, we see a lack of role models at times and a lack of leadership. That was the guy, because although he wasn't the leader with the armband on the pitch, he was the leader in so many other worlds, mentality-wise, focused. At 37, in Piggy in the middle, still didn't give the ball away at 37. That's what Robin van Persie said. And he just thought, I've come here and this guy's not given the ball away once and he's 37. Like, what the hell's going on? Everyone give the ball away, even mucking around, as you probably know more than me.
Yeah.
This guy never did. And you think, how is that even possible for this guy to be that good?
He was that good. He was that good, Dan. He was that good. And again, you know, you could toss a coin, you could do whatever you want. Bergkamp is he for me, is he probably the most skillful player to play for Arsenal? On top player, yes, he is. Obviously, but there's different categories. You know, I'm part of the strikers union type thing, and I look at, you know, what they actually meant to us getting, because when you've got so many invincibles in there, you've got to look at, okay, where you got to rate them in where we got to. Bergkamp was influential. Of course he was. That's why he's so high up. Sol Campbell was so key at the back because Tony wasn't there. Henry was there, you know, because he got the goals, the main amount of goals. But let's be real here. You know, all that team should be held in such high esteem by the whole of the Premier League anyway. And, you know, Freddie and Perez, they get a lot of love. But unfortunately, they've played in a team that had some generational talent. And, you know, they were generational players. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Absolutely incredible. And I love doing this show. I love doing this show because I look back and it just makes me happy, you know, and it makes me reminisce, and it's just pure brilliance from what we saw from some of those players. Kev, this has been good. Well, what I want to do is do a get off the potsy with you, right? What we always do is a get off the potsy, and I pick somebody who I think needs to get off the potsy, and we all know what that means, right? So I might be a little bit harsh with this, and I've got the best person on with me discuss it for a few minutes, right?
Go on.
So this is who I'm choosing to get off the potsy, Alexander Lacazette, right? Now, people may think this is harsh because he's not supposed to be the 30-goal striker in this system. But I need to see goals from this guy because he's the number 9. He's the striker that we need right now to take us forward. Now, some people will say that he is taking us forward. He's linking up the play. He's holding up the ball. He's flicking through the Sakas and Smith Rowes and the Martinellis and Erdegaards. And I would say fair play. But work rate and link-up play only gets you so far. This guy needs to start scoring for me because we need his goals. So I'm putting it out there, Casey. I want Lacazette to get off the potsy and get Arsenal some goals, mate. Your turn. Over to you.
Hey, listen, I agree with you in a sense. I agree his all-round play and in general, he's very good. But we need a bit more. We need some goals. And you know what, Dan? He has scored goals, but they've been offside or there's been an infringement or something. But we need him. We need his goals to matter. We want top 4, Dan. I don't care what anybody wants to
100%.
say. Oh, you know, we're not favourites or we're we want the top 4. We're in position to get top 4 if we win our games in hand. We need Lacazette to come up with some goals. Not saying that we want him to go on a run of 10 goals, although we'd love it.
Yeah.
But to help out some of these youngsters, out as you're the captain, you're the talisman. Give me 5 goals, Lacazette. Give me 5 goals in 5 games. That'll do me.
Yeah. And do you know what? Do you know what? If I put myself, and I could ask you, if I put you in the boots of Lacazette right now, you're the senior head, you're the captain, you're the leader. You want to help these kids out. Hands down, you want to help these kids out. But there's other ways that you can do this to help out, and it's chipping with goals yourself because there's a lot of pressure on the Sakas and Smith Rowes to be scoring at the moment. Luckily, they are, or certainly were at the weekend. Martinelli's been brilliant since he's come back into this side. Erdegaard, although we've seen the goals dry up and assists dry up of late, I think he's been instrumental in midfield in the last few games for us, 6 or 7 games now, where I think, yeah, you're really putting it in. And I was a guy that I questioned. I said, look, I want to see more from you. He's proven that he can give me more, which is always great. But I now need to see a little bit more from Lacazette. And I think he is missing chances, Kev. The one-on-one that he missed against Wolves, the open goal pretty much that he missed against Burnley. They go in and the game's killed off against Wolves and we got 3 points against Burnley. That's how fine margins it is with Lacazette. Yeah. We need him to just take that one step and put the ball in the back of the net. But my question to you is, do you think he can do it?
I do. I think he can do it. I think he just needs one. He's got to start with one. And, you know, he has put the ball away, but the goals have been chalked off. So what we got to do, either whether it's a penalty, I mean, let's be honest, Dan, there should have been maybe a couple of penalties at the weekend.
Oh, definitely.
Where he could have got on the score sheet, but obviously we weren't given them. He needs a goal. He needs a break to go with all that hard work and link up play. So fingers crossed. He can get off the mark. He can get going again and get off the mark and get going. I think that's really important for us as a team, to be honest with you, Dan. Because if he gets scoring, that's someone else that the defense has to account for. And it takes a little bit of pressure off our wider guys.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely bang on. And listen, I've got everything crossed that we can get 3 points this week against Wolves and that he comes up with the goals. Because do you know what? I said to you on Lee on a Thursday, I said, Lacazette's going to score and Smith Rowe's going to score. We're going to win 2-0. I was so close. Lacazette blooming scored and it was offside. Smith Rowe got his goal and I was getting all cocky going, see, I told you 2-0 when bloody conceded at the end. I thought, oh no, geez. Always the way. But
I know.
One of those, man. One of those. Listen, KC, this has been great, man. I've loved it. Love talking to you about football anyway, but this has been a real special episode. And I want to thank you for coming on, man, and sharing it with me. It's been great to hear from you, mate.
Dan, always a pleasure coming on, speaking to you. Get Off the Pottsy, my debut. Very rarely I make debuts these times in my life, but it's my debut and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks for having me on, mate.
Mate, thank you for coming on. All the squaddies, I hope you've enjoyed it. Put your comments in the section. Please tell us who your top 5 are and see if they compare to myself and KC. Until then, we will see you next time. Take care.
At these squaddies.
Mind the gap between the train and the platform. Please stand clear of the discussion doors. The next stop is Highbury Squad.